Soon after coming to faith, I told the friends who were very key in nurturing my faith journey about my decision, and they were all so excited. And one of the first things they did then was to say, Ed, now that you've made the most important decision in your life, now you have to decide what you're going to do with that faith. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, either you go and decide to serve God in full-time Christian ministry. And so I thought about that, and I said, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, you typically go on to seminary, and after you got your MDiv, consider being a pastor, or going into the mission field, or becoming a parachurch minister. And I didn't feel called to that at that time, even though I was a brand new Christian. And so I said, what's the alternative? And he said, well, you can go into the secular workplace, and there God would expect you to share the gospel, so get to know the four spiritual laws, bring many of your workmates to Christ, and with your paycheck, make sure that you tithe so that you can fund the people who are doing God's work, God's ministry. If you end up doing well, invite missionaries into your home while they're on furlough, and in those ways, you're able to still allow God to do His work through you. Further, they went on to say, what are you thinking about getting into, Ed? And I told them, well, I'm pretty wired. I have an interest in business, politics, and culture. And everyone looked at each other and they said, well, gosh, Ed, it's a lot easier to be a Christian if you got into social work, education, or healthcare. And perhaps the most difficult areas for you to become a Christian and maintain your faith in is in the business world, in the world of politics, and culture and entertainment. And so with that, I left that meeting pretty confused because even as a new Christian and reading through Scripture, nothing that I read backed up that position that they were trying to argue with me. And so I went into the workplace pretty confused, as well as disappointed that I let God down. And my first job out of college was working at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I was hired as a new sales executive. And after my first week of work there, where you spend most of your time in classes that kind of teach you about Blue Cross and signing up for employee benefits and all that stuff, I was walking out of the church I was attending, which was Elmbrook Church in Milwaukee, and I ran into the new senior vice president for sales and marketing. And I had recognized him because he had been one of the people who had came and taught in some of the new employee classes that I attended that first week. And I was so excited to see him walking out of the same church that I was. So I ran up to him and asked him if he was a Christian, and he smiled and he said, yes. I said, how long have you been a Christian? And he said, oh, for about 30 years. I said, well, then how long have you been in the business world? And he said, oh, for about 25 years. I said, we have to talk because you need to walk me through what it was like to integrate this view of faith and work. And from that point on, I became very passionate about this intersection of faith and work for most Christians. And the big lesson that I learned from him during the 30 years plus that he mentored me was that all Christians, without exception, are called to full-time Christian ministry. It's how you define full-time Christian ministry, which is narrowly defined by the culture as professional church work, but broadly defined by God as anything you do that serves God, whether it is in your family, in your neighborhood, and certainly your workplace. Once you come to the conclusion that God's ministry is service in all of life, then when you start working, you realize that, yes, you have an immediate supervisor, and that's your boss. And you have a commitment because it's the company or entity or nonprofit that hired you, and you have a commitment to that. But also, being a person of faith, you have a commitment to God. And that commitment is to live your life as faithfully as possible through all these various parts of your life, whether it's at home, in your community, or at work. And so with that perspective, you realize that I'm there serving God in whatever job and immediate responsibilities that I have. And as a result, the work that I do should be characteristic of the God that I'm serving. And so I try to do my best. I try to make sure that my work is characterized by excellence, and that excellence goes not to me as far as credit goes, but goes back to the Lord. And so with that, knowing that God is my ultimate accountability, that puts a much different perspective on my work as both in business as well as in public service. That even when I spent a lot of time at the White House, being a believer, certainly I was there to serve the President of the United States and accomplish the things that he wanted to accomplish on his agenda in the areas that I have responsibility over. But even more so, I serve the God of the universe, the triune God, and from that I have certain obligations that I need to make sure that I live my life faithfully. And it just happens that my employer or in public service, whoever I'm working for benefits from that.